What's up, people? This is the Real King 10187, and this is my deck profile on the Dragonsworn. I'm going to go through each card and give a small explanation on why I chose them, and so let's go ahead and kick it off. First card is going to be Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress, basically for your back row destruction. Next up is Groff, Draw Power. Aaron to knock off those Snowman Eaters, extra Rykos, Great Cube Spies, whatever they got that's face down. You can go ahead and knock that off and return it back to the deck. Jane gives herself a little nice boost up as well as her milling power. Lumina, runner in sets of 2 for the new ban list. Obvious reasons, swarming as well as some exceeding into Laravir, acid, has many different uses for it. Next up is Trip Ryko, your back row destruction, monster destroyer, extra milling ability. And that gives you a total of 7 different Lightsworn monsters, which gives me access to play with 3 JDs. Next up is the dragon piece of the lineup, starting off with Trip Eclipse. Eclipse has proven very useful in this variation of one, especially when playing with Future Fusion. I can remove pretty much, Future Fusion is great, I'm going to get to that in a second, but wearing, removing Judgment Dragon, Rim D, freaking Dad, anything else that you want to play with. Next up is one of the key cards for the deck, Light Pulsar Dragon. This is especially useful when you have JD up on the field. JD can wipe out the field, destroy Pulsar Dragon. Pulsar can bring out this next card, Red Eyes Darkness Metal, which allows you to bring Pulsar Dragon back out of the graveyard and set up your OTK for game. Next up, this deck would not be complete without some Chaos, and that's BLS and Trip Chaos Sorcerer. Next up, I've added in some different tech cards that helps the deck flow a little bit better and keeps it more consistent. First off, being honest, you already know it works well with the Lightsworn side of the house, and it also helps out if you have any monster that tries to run over Pulsar or Eclipse. Then you have Plague Spreader, who has great synergy with Lumina and the rest of the Lightsworn monsters, and it also, of course, allows you to do some different synchro plays. Next up, Singing. Singing, great for that searching ability for Plague Spreader and for Lumina and for Ryko as well. And my final tech card for this one is going to be Zephyrs the Elite. This card has done so much for me since I've been playing with the Lightsworns, especially with returning Lightsworns back to my hand in order for me to use Solar Recharge, as well as for returning Light Pulsar Dragon back to my hand, so I can utilize Eclipse's effect out of the graveyard and return it back to the field with relative ease. Moving on to the spell cards, one of the key spell cards in this deck is Future Fusion. I tried to mention it earlier, but you play Future Fusion once. If you have not used Eclipse at all, if it's not been played yet and it's not in your hand, you activate Future Fusion, you can thin out your deck by 8 cards minimum just by sending 3 Eclipses to the graveyard with Future Fusion played. Next up, Allure. You have about 9 to 10 dark monsters in this deck, so Allure plays pretty consistently for the most part. And with Lumina being at 2, it gives you the ability to play with Laravir to bring back almost any of those guys that you bring out. Majority of times it's going to be Plague Spreader or Zephyrs the Elite. Next up, you have your Charge of the Light Brigade. It's pretty obvious searchability in your deck, as well as some plays with Solar Recharge, which of course is played in trips. Next up, with the amount of cards you're going to be sending to the graveyard, Pot of Avarice is of course essential, especially if you want to do a lot of replays. Next up is your basic staples, Heavy Storm, Monster Reborn, Dark Wolf, and of course some back row hate with 3 MSTs. This deck or this variation does not play any trap cards at all. The extra deck is purely personal preference. I run a lot of different things from mine. Some different choices that I ran: Utopia, Leviathan Dragon, Mistworm, 5-head of course for Future Fusion, number 30 Acid Golem of Destruction, Blade Armor Ninja, who actually does come out a little bit more often than not. It requires a little bit of setting up, but he is playable in this variation of it. Bryonac, Librarian, although Librarian doesn't really get played all that often, it's very rare that it actually comes out. Catastrophe Emergency Situations, Black Rose, Scrap Dragon, one of the big ones, Laravel, and of course Stardust Dragon. But like I said, you can play with any version of the Exceeds that you choose. It all comes down to personal preference. But that is my build for the Dragonsworn variation or Twilight Dragon, depending on which what region you're in. If you have any comments or any suggestions, to leave them down below. And as always, when you enter the throne room, bow down to the king.